Hello everybody and welcome back to Across the Line. Welcome to our Chinese Grand Prix sprint race and race predictions. Joining me once again on the vodcast, whatever you want to call it, is let's think of a word to describe you today, the gorgeous Zach. We'll go with the gorgeous Zach. Looking pretty good with a little bit of stubble in your hair, all styled nicely.
I needed that today.
Yeah?
Yeah, I just needed that. Thank you.
That's good. How are we feeling? Chinese Grand Prix, we've not raced here since 2019?
19.
Yeah.
19. I'm excited for a lot of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
One being that it's been 5 years and a good amount of the drivers on the grid have never driven there, which I think could make it a little bit interesting. Even the ones who've been around a while.
So it was their first year in F1. Albon, George, and Lando was their first year when they raced there.
Yeah.
And Max only had 5 wins to his name. He's now got 57.
Never won at China, Max.
No, but I imagine it's going to be a race that he can add to his total win tally, and another country he's probably going to win at. But
I just think relative inexperience for a lot of drivers on this track, plus it's a sprint weekend. They're only going to have one free practice. I think it could be interesting.
Okay, good. So, speaking of the sprint weekend, we're going to just jump straight into it. Sprint race winner. 4 o'clock on Saturday morning in the UK. Who do you think is going to win that race?
I've gone Max Verstappen for the sprint race. He
Fairly
won
safe
5
bet.
of 6 last year. So, and Oscar the only other. But no, I think Max will do the sprint this weekend. I think he'll win it.
Yeah, no, it's safe bet, as is always with Max in that Red Bull. I, however, have decided to spice things up a bit. It's a sprint race. Let's say someone else is going to win it, and I think that person is going to be Carlos Sainz, because why not? He's been in insane shape, in good form lately. I have a sneaky suspicion he's going to have a pretty good weekend, and I think of all the possible opportunities, the sprint race will be the one where he'll be able to shine the most. I may end up eating my own words on this one, but yeah. Let's jump on then. So the main race, obviously the feature event for that weekend, who have we got down for pole position for the race?
So you've decided to spice it up for the sprint. I've spiced it up for the pole. I've gone Charles Leclerc.
Ooh, very nice, very nice. Why Charles? Good qualifying form usually. I don't think he's got it on pole before at China.
But out of the drivers there, he has a bit of experience at China. Granted, I think that was when he was still at Sauber.
He's pretty good on a one-lap pace. Again, this time, I'm going with the safer, more obvious prediction. I've gone for Max Verstappen to get pole for the Chinese Grand Prix. It's a track that I feel like he is going to be pretty damn good at. He's going to get pole, and I think it's going to be miles above the rest. I hope Ferrari can close the gap to Red Bull, but I think Max he's on top form. So, yeah, pole position for our Max. But will he convert that podium to a win? So our podium and winners predictions. 3rd place on the podium, I have gone for Carlos Sainz. 3rd place for my man Carlos.
Place. I've also gone for a Spaniard.
Oh!
I've gone for Fernando Alonso.
The recently re-signed Fernando Alonso. Very good.
Yeah, I think there'll be a feel-good nature around the camp as he has extended that deal. I think the Aston has kind of gone under the radar this year.
Well, he's been pretty solid, sort of P4, P5s, P6, sort of. That's good. Really good points.
And it doesn't take a lot to go wrong ahead of him for him to then capitalize. And I just feel like that will happen at some point this season. I do think Fernando will podium this season.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've gone for this weekend. 3rd place.
No, good. 2nd place, obvious choice, I feel, or predictable, boring. Checo. I've gone for Checo. I feel like he's going to get P2. Red Bull's a good car. Yada, yada. Control C, Control V reasons as to why he's going to be P2.
I've gone for a Spaniard. I've gone for Carlos Sainz.
Oh, nice.
2nd place.
Very nice.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay. And 1st place?
Well, because I put Charles on pole, I had to put Max as the race winner.
To keep the statistic going of from pole position to not winning a race.
So I've gone with Max.
Yep.
I don't know what in my like head version
What
of this
happens
race.
to-
I
to
don't know what
Charles?
happened to Charles, but he had a good qualifying, and then just something went wrong in the race.
Yeah. No, we'll see how true that may be, because it's so many unknowns. We haven't seen China in 5 years. It's so bizarre to think of that. So hopefully these cars are good around here. We hope. We can pray. So
Wait, your winner.
Oh, Max Verstappen, obviously.
Okay,
Duh.
right. It just like doesn't need to be said.
Doesn't need to be said. Let's move on. So before we move on to biggest winner, something that we introduced in our last predictions video is who's going to finish 7th. So Zach, take it away.
I mean, it got me points last week. I'm going with George Russell again for 7th place.
Okay, good. No, he's a proven 7th place winner. I'll go for Lewis Hamilton. Why not? I feel like 7th place, the Mercedes. It's a natural sort of place for it to sort of be.
I almost did as well.
We'll go Lewis. We'll see if he can beat George this weekend in the race. Biggest winner then. Let's move on to biggest winner. Biggest winner of the weekend. Who have you got down, or what team have you got down?
I've got Aston Martin, and some of that is based on the fact that I obviously put Fernando on the podium.
Mm-hmm.
I just think Stroll will have a tidy race. I think he'll get some points, and part of the reason why I think biggest winner of the weekend is I actually have them down. I mentioned it last week. I have them to finally jump Mercedes in the constructors this weekend.
No, that's a good prediction for the biggest winner. I've gone for my sort of usual biggest winning team that I think I've put these down now for 3 of the 5 races we've had. Ferrari. I reckon they're going to have a good weekend. I'm hoping Carlos can win the sprint. I'd love him to win the race, or Charles. But I think Ferrari's going to have a good weekend. I do think that is the closest car on the field to gaining to Red Bull. Whether they can make that jump to match them or overtake them, we'll see. But I think Ferrari will have a solid P3, P4. We mentioned in our last race review podcast how it's a little bit boring that not only have we got P1 and P2 sort of locked in, we're getting P3 and P4 locked in too. So yes, Ferrari, biggest winner for me.
One thing that is apparently coming this weekend is changes for Mercedes.
Oh, they're bringing upgrades.
They are, and they were, I think, what Lewis seemed to say is that they should have come for Japan. They didn't. They are going to be there this weekend.
Okay.
So he's hoping that they work. I mean, he's probably just hoping anything works.
Yeah.
But Mercedes are meant to have changes, and that could potentially have an impact. And now bringing us on to the biggest loser of the weekend, I've gone with Mercedes. And I don't think it's going to work.
Oh, no. I'm pretty sure they said recently that they don't know which direction to take the car, and the data they're getting back doesn't add up. It's a miserable season for them. But we'll delve in on that in our race review if they are the biggest loser.
Well, I've got them down. I think that China is going to be high on Deg. I think that they've struggled with that.
It's
with
high-speed corners
year.
they really struggle at. Sector 1 at Suzuka, prime example.
And yeah, I think it's going to have an impact on them. I don't know what their changes are.
Biggest losers for me this weekend? I've gone for the Racing Bulls.
Ooh.
Daniel's having his new chassis swap with Tsunoda. I got a funny feeling that's not going to do anything. Daniel's struggled with these ground effect cars. He did the same at McLaren. He wanted the chassis swap. I got a funny feeling, Yuki's been scoring points. He's been doing good. I'm expecting him to possibly have a little whoopsie, and maybe it be with Daniel. Spice it up a bit. Just some drama.
Together.
Yeah. So yes, Racing Bulls for the biggest losers this weekend. I don't know how I can define that. We'll see how they actually do, and then I'll try and justify it in our race review episode. So that brings us nicely on to the news story of the weekend. What do we think will be the biggest news story of this weekend? We've already had one sort of break, but what do you think could top that?
So you've just obviously talked about a Racing Bulls stinker. My news story of the weekend is Daniel Ricciardo point scoring.
This is good. We like different takes here on the Across the Line show. Okay, well, so you think the chassis swap's going to do good?
Yeah, and I think he's previous winner at China. He's one of the most experienced drivers at China. Obviously, we touched on a lot of drivers have never been here before. There's only 3 on the actual grid that are previous winners.
It'll have the most powerful engine as well. I imagine a straight line it could be quite quick.
I mean, I've not touched on this in my prediction, but I actually think they may get a double point scoring weekend.
Ooh, okay. That means a lot would have to happen. Okay, I'll wait until we talk about our DNFs for that. But biggest news story of the weekend. I've gone for somewhat of an obvious one, but it would be a nice one for Guan Yu Zhou to score points at his home Grand Prix. Again, maybe I am living in a fantasy land, but I just think it'd be quite a nice story. We had Yuki scoring points in Japan 2 weeks ago. I'm thinking maybe Zhou, maybe he could just pull that Sauber, kick Sauber, steak, team Sauber, medium rare to 10th place. Maybe. Because he's been bubbling on the points a little bit before.
Bahrain, he was bubbling on the points. Since then, I mean, the team has had just stinker after stinker.
Yeah. It's all right, though.
Well, to get a pit stop under 3 seconds,
at least
that would be the dream.
Pit stops in China will be no problem at all. It's not as if it's a high deg track. We got nothing to worry about. It's not as if pit stops will be a crucial part to the race.
It's going to be a 2-stop race.
At minimum, yeah. We don't even know what the weather's going to be like, other than probably dry and drier. Yes, so Zhou to score points at his home Grand Prix. I think that'd be quite a nice story for the weekend. Which brings us on to our final 2 categories. Number of DNFs and safety cars. So, do you think there will be a safety car this weekend?
No.
I have also said no. I'm sick of us having these yellow flags, these red flags, no flipping safety car. Where's it been?
Have you gone no for a similar reason to what I have?
Because we've gotten it wrong every weekend. Yes. Yeah, that's pretty much why.
Yes,
I'm hoping we can jinx it.
Yeah.
No, exactly the same reasoning and logic for me, as I'm assuming it is for you.
Yeah, I was sat there looking at my document and going, I've said yes to this question every single week.
I got it wrong every week.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no this week.
So, number of DNFs. Do you think there'll be any DNFs? If there's no safety car, surely there's going to be no retirements.
I've got retirements. I've got that there are going to be
how many?
2 DNFs.
Okay, we've gone the exact same then. I've done 2 DNFs as well. So that's going to be it for our predictions for the sprint race and the Grand Prix at China this weekend. I ask this question to you, Zach, every time. Do we think, I can ask you 2 questions. Do you think we'll have a good sprint race? Do you think we'll have a good Grand Prix?
I don't think the sprint races are the most exciting anyway.
No, likewise.
I'm not a huge fan of the sprint races. So, I mean, that's nothing. It could be a good sprint. It's just not. It's not for me. But do I think we'll have a good race?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good race.
Okay.
I think inexperience, 1 practice session. That's the only reason the sprint is kind of exciting to me. Is not a lot of practice room for the drivers. It's pretty much
less
straight
practice
into quali
always
on
makes
Saturday.
it just a little bit spicier. And when they've not raced there for 5 years, maybe that could add some fuel to the flame. But fingers crossed. It's not unlikely for China. Yes. So there we go. Thank you very much, everybody, once again for listening to us ramble on Across the Line for our predictions for the Chinese Grand Prix and sprint race. Make sure to follow us on our socials, ring the bell, you know what to do. And we will speak to you guys in our race review video coming out at some point at the start of next week. So until then, we'll speak to you then, and goodbye.